79 years ago, on May the 5th, 1838, a group of 400 Indians arrived in what was then the British colony of Demerara, which later became British Guyana, and then later on Guyana. On two ships, the Hesperus and the Whitby. We still have Whitby by here too. They were the first of over 500,000 to come to the Caribbean. The first group to come to the Americas, the first group of Indians, that is, to come to the Americas. That was the first arrival day, and we have been celebrating the anniversary of that day as Indian Arrival Day. Why do we celebrate the first Indian Arrival Day, you ask? It is our birthday in this part of the world, and you always celebrate your birthday. It marks the coming of Indian people, our cultural heritage, and our spiritual heritage like Hinduism, which we carry on today in this Mandir, in our homes, and in other Mandirs around the Toronto and various different areas. It is important to remember that those first Indians to Guyana came as saviors of the country. Why were they saviors, you may ask? Because after slavery was abolished, the sugar cane factories and the estates were going into disrepair and neglect. People were brought from other parts of the world to try to work and to farm the sugar cane. But the conditions were so harsh. Heat, humidity, pests. And all of us know what those pests are. They're mosquitoes and houseflies. They cause all kinds of diseases, and soon enough, everyone was dying in huge numbers. The slaves who were there were encouraged, they were paid extra money to go on and work the farms, the sugar estates, but they would have none of it. They in fact fled and separated and settled in the towns. Finally, the British thought it best, let's try the Indians. That's how the first set arrived there. They were welcome as saviors as well. In fact, when that first arrival was, the governor of the then Demerara himself went to the wharf, the port, to welcome the visitors. And they were not visitors, they were treated as visitors because they were indentured labor, paid to work, paid a pittance for that matter, but with great promises of huge things to come. And if any of you have seen the little play that was produced a few years ago, The Dancing Bells of Reka, you'd have seen portrayed some of the conditions that these people faced and the promises that were made and how some of them were tricked into coming to the Caribbean. But you know what? All those things happen for a reason. They happen so that we can be here. Okay, without all these things happening, all these sacrifices made by those people, we would not be here. And we need to be thankful for that. They perform as saviors of the sugar industry. That was a pillar of the economy at the time. The sugar plantations were dying because they had no workers after the slaves were freed and refused to work on the estates. Indians saved the estates as well as the country, and later developed the country areas, small-scale agriculture, much of the small businesses, and plenty more. They didn't get much appreciation for the job of saving the country, but that is another story. All of us who are of Indian descent, we know what our foreparents went through. We've seen it. Those of us of my age, I can still remember my grandfather. He was old at the time, in his 80s, but still, he didn't stop working. That man worked until the last week he died. And all of them were like that. Similar things happen in Trinidad, in Suriname, in Jamaica, Guadeloupe, Martinique, and other Caribbean islands that also celebrate Indian Arrival Day this week. The 500,000 jihadis that they were called because they came by the boats have multiplied And now we have 2 million of their descendants living in the Caribbean and other parts of the world. Some of us have made a second migration to Canada, to the United States, to Britain, to France, to Holland, and other countries in the West. Here we are in smaller numbers than in Guyana, in Suriname, and Trinidad. But we are the biggest ethnic group. Where we are the biggest ethnic group, but we are doing the same work as in the Caribbean. In these countries too, we find celebrations of Indian Arrival Day sometimes with different names, such as South Asian Heritage Month in Canada and Asian Heritage, American Heritage Month in the United States. Here in Canada, we find we Indians from the Caribbean are part of a larger group of over 1 million, who are also called South Asians, and in the United States, a larger group of around 3 million called Indian Americans or South Asians. Some of the Indians may have arrived in the US and Canada as indentured servants long ago, as early as 1624 in the US, but they left behind no legacy, as the Caribbean Indians, our foreparents, did. Here in Canada, we know the first group of Indians visited in 1897, and we believe some of them stayed, but we have no date of their arrival. There was no record kept. The first Indians from the Caribbean were Kenneth Mahabir from Trinidad in 1908 and M.N. Santu from Demara also in 1908. We don't know their arrival dates either, but they did come, and in those days you had to travel by ship, small ships for that matter, cargo ships, and they came, they landed, they stayed, and of course we celebrate the 100th anniversary of the coming of Indo-Caribbeans to Canada in 2008 here in Toronto. A group of Indo-Caribbeans started celebrating the 150th anniversary of that first arrival in 1838 here in Toronto, and that was in 1988, and later continued it as Indo-Caribbean Heritage Day. Indo-Caribbeans made it Indian Arrival Day from 1997, and then Indian Arrival and Heritage Month. The Government of Ontario in 2001 recognized this as South Asian Heritage Month. And that is the truth. South Asian Heritage Month is Indian Arrival and Heritage Month. And May 5th, South Asian Arrival Day, is the same Indian Arrival Day that we are celebrating even now, this day. Friends and relatives, devotees, that in a nutshell is the story of Indian Arrival Day. And the young people here should know all this stuff because they owe this as their heritage. They should know it. And it is our duty as their elders to make sure that the information and the knowledge is passed on from generation to generation. Most of you have seen the TV show Roots, I believe, yes? From one little fact of a man going to find a piece of wood to make a drum, got captured, sold as a slave. His ancestors, because he was able to pass on the information from one generation to the next, was able to trace his roots back to where he came from, the Niger area. That is why I have to blame our foreparents a lot, because they did not give us that kind of information. They didn't speak about their tormenting, and nowadays when I go to do people's religious ceremonies, when they pass on, and I ask them who your grandfather's name is, who your great-grandfather's name is, we don't know. That's how the amok comes.
But did we have a sheet there with the actual names of the first 401?
Yes, I know the sheet. We're not going to read all 450 names.
No. But how many trips did those boats make? Because there's a lot.
They started in 1838 and they stopped around 1907, 1908 time.
Oh, so
I think it's well over 100 ships.
Yeah, quite a lot,
okay.
quite a lot.
But the... I get from the internet. The archives in Guyana,
Yeah.
they now have something you could do it online. You could check the
I checked it, it's not readily available. The names seem to have changed sometime or the other.
They missed out some of them.
Yeah. The record is not really thorough.
Throughout the Caribbean in the 60s and prior to that, there were misspelling, mispronunciation.
The spelling was a problem too,
misnames.
yes. The names were spelled differently because these people didn't know to read in English. So when they ask them their name and they tell them, they write it how it sounds like.
Yeah, in some cases only the first king was registered.
How you think we got so many Prasad and all kind of different things? All with different spelling.
And spell so many different ways.
And Maharaj and Maharaj. And Sookram spelled S-O-K-R-A-M-S-U-K. And that is my own family I'm talking about. And they were supposed to be Dubé in their last name, then Dubé never lost somewhere along the way.
And we have no Bihari. I believe that when the white man asked
ask them where they come from, Bihar.
What's your name? He said,
I'm
Bihari.
from Bihar, yes.
Bihar.
Yeah.
Stupid white man write down Bihari.
Bihari. That's true, yeah, exactly true.
But my Ajah told us he's from Calcutta.
He's from Calcutta, okay. So that's, at least he told you where he's from.
Yeah, he said down when he was
I know that my grandmother came from Lucknow, but that's all I know.
That's a big place.
It's a huge town, I know. And they were Rajasthani, she was a princess too. Anyway, that's another story.
My Ajah told us they only came with jewelry in their back.
So, this in a nutshell is a story, or the Indian arrival in North America and the Caribbean. Something well worth celebrating. We Indo-Caribbeans are now over 250,000 in Canada and over 500,000 in the United States. By all accounts, most of us are doing well. And now with the Trump thing coming up, things may change a little bit. But that doesn't matter. The ones who are there and have migrated and are residents, they're doing pretty good. And we are contributing in a good way to our new homelands, and we are carrying our heritage and culture for future generations. This is why I want to ask each of you who have kids to get them to show up to money. I know they think the internet has every answer for them. Be careful what you read in the internet. Know the site where you visit. Make sure that it's authentic. And if it's not, then you get stuff that cures cancer, which can't be cured. You get stuff that cures overweight, which can't be cured, unless you take steps to correct it. And a whole bunch of other stuff. All these people want is your money, man. And unless you realize that and come to a realization, the fool and his money are soon parted. Means you're a fool. All the credit goes to our ancestors, like those who came to Demerara in 1838 on that first arrival day, carrying with them our precious heritage and culture. The credit goes to our parents, grandparents, who carried on the tradition of Hinduism in the Caribbean, and those who are doing the same here in Canada. Indian Arrival Day is to show our gratitude for the gift that is beyond price, the precious gift of our Indian heritage, and to pledge that we will pass on this heritage to our children, to our grandchildren, and all generations to come. This is a tradition that is really worth keeping. And I have to be honest with you. You don't have to be born in a Hindu home to be a Hindu. You don't have to believe in Paramatman to be a Hindu. You can have any view you want and still be a Hindu. All you have to do is realize that Dharma exists and Dharma is existence. And we are existent. We are. You and I are here, we exist. Once we exist, we have to practice Dharma. There's no getting away from it.